spring, summer, fall, winter. And smack dab in the middle, monsoon, the season of rain. Depending on where you live, you might think of the rainy season as non-existent, as a feature of a different season, or as a distinct season in its own right. Growing up in a tropical South Asian country, I learned it as the third. Heavy floods changed the way we navigated the city, and the farmers of Bangladesh devised floating farm systems to sustain agricultural production when arable land went under. But perhaps because water physics are so complex, very few video games imagine rain as a distinct system, a force of nature we navigate and plan around instead of as just ambiance, aesthetic, a shorthand for gloom. Flooded areas might be levels, but flooding is rarely a mechanic. Farming sims like Stardew Valley do marry the mechanics of rain with gameplay, but they're also uniquely positioned to expand the possibility space further. The winter season fundamentally changes your farming routine. What might a monsoon look like?
Adding seasons to Minecraft is a common suggestion for the game, and has been the focus of various mod packs. We know it isn't impossible to implement, as games like Animal Crossing use the dates on your device to determine what season the game should be in. But it still brings up a question. Why is it that Minecraft doesn't have seasons? The simple answer is that it may have been difficult to implement when the game was in a much simpler state, and it doesn't fit Mojang's current design philosophy. Instead, we have biomes, regions where the weather can change, but they stay locked to a specific climate. Deserts are always hot, plains are always either sunny or rainy, and snowy biomes permanently have snow on the ground. Minecraft's lack of seasons has contributed to the game's unique identity, giving us regions that are frozen in time and don't experience the temporal changes that contribute to life's complexities. You don't have to worry about needing a winter jacket, if frost will kill your crops, or about the decrease in the amount of daylight you have. In turn, the game feels more timeless, allowing you to get lost in the kind of world that you want to create.
Hi, today I'll be discussing one of my favorites under-discussed feature from the Generation 5 Pokemon games, the seasons. First of all, sorry, this music is just too good, it's kind of distracting. So as I was gonna say, Black and White were the first mainline Pokemon entries to introduce a monthly seasonal cycle. This does so much for immersion. No other game makes me feel so bad for not playing than when I boot up Black after a while and see the seasons roll by until they've caught up. It takes the game from a fun little adventure with some pals to a multi-year journey full of growth and discovery with a team you really get to know and love. They bring the world alive in a way I've yet to see Game Freak fully realize again, since it's... Okay, hold on, this is a bot and I need something settled down. So the changes also aren't just aesthetic. Seasons affect the weather, the world design, NPCs, wild Pokemon encounters, the music, dialogue, and even a main story fight in the sequel. You know what, more than any other... Dude, how are they all bangers like that? And oh my god, I'm out of time. Listen, just do not go into this house during summer. Trust me, do not do it. Don't!
One of the marketing lines for the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows is that it will have seasons, which will affect how protagonists Naoe and Yasuke move through the world. Although, not too much because who would want a Ubisoft game to have any interesting friction? But it's brought me back to how Assassin's Creed Valhalla did seasons. The year never turns for Ivor, but instead of being different times, the seasons are different spaces. In the south it's spring and there are bluebells. In the north there are snowdrifts and every house has a fire burning in the hearth. Maybe the most obvious standout is a town in Gloucestershire where it's always the Festival of Samhain. The whole of Valhalla is set in this deeply exaggerated version of Viking-era England, and I don't like how a lot of that is done, but I've come to appreciate the fact that it's both frozen in time and yet deeply aware of how its passage changes the feel of the world. Ivor is a mythical figure, a story told around the campfire, and what season it is depends on what's most dramatic for the adventure she's on today.
Fire Emblem Three Houses' Japanese name, Fukasetsugetsu, is derived from a Japanese poem that uses passing seasons as an analog for changes in life. It is about how our lives are in a constant flux, yet we cannot do anything but accept it and move forward. This mirrors Three Houses' central narrative perfectly. The innocent bliss of the academy days only lasts barely a year before everything plunges to chaos. The innocent days are but a fleeting moment. A calm before the storm that is the Unification War breaks the peaceful days. Yet these days still matter for the characters, no matter how brief they were. We cannot go to the past, nor can we stop the march of time, but we can cherish the memories we made and use them to carve a better future.
If turning back the hands of time was not enough to save his life, you must accept what came to pass was fate.
How many times has this happened to you? Somebody tells you that you have to check out this awesome TV show. So you watch the beginning and find that it doesn't grab you. Only for the person to tell you, stick with it, it gets better after a season or so. How annoying is that? TV shows are supposed to be fun to watch. You shouldn't have to slog through boring stuff to get to the good part. But isn't that a universal truth, that the first season is never the best season of a show? A typical sitcom takes a while to hit its peak because the goal of a sitcom is to become familiar. You get to know these characters like they were your own family and friends, which makes the stuff they get into more meaningful to watch. In the more serialized prestige show, the drama takes time to build as pieces are introduced and the stakes can really grow. And in both cases, the writers are figuring out the story over time through trial and error. If a show's best season is its first season, it's not a good show. Because what that says is that it started off getting people excited about its potential, and then squandered it. TV as a medium is asking you for an investment, and it's up to you if you want to give it.
Television can be cancelled for a number of reasons. Low ratings, low buzz, a global pandemic, and sometimes no real reason at all, for at least these 4 I've seen. It can seem disheartening and truly upsetting when a show you love is stopped despite your futile protests. You wonder if the people who created it, who worked to make it, envisioned something more prestigious and lasting for the project.
I was up all night crying.
Television often is about the relationship an audience has with a continuing episodic story. One season of a show may not be the whole story, may not give people enough time to cherish the story. And yet some shows with just one season have a cult following of fans. Freaks and Geeks, in fact, is often heralded as one of the greatest shows of all time. Would it remain so beloved if it was renewed for season 2? Like anything in art or pop culture, you have to let it die to let it live. Maybe your most favourite cancelled show will be the next coolest thing.
Good God, it's like really good.
In 1997, John Hind created the hit website JumpTheShark.com that documented shows that had gleaned all the interesting material they could off the original premise of said show. This originated from Hind and friends discussing shows that had fallen off, specifically Happy Days, when one friend pinned the episode where the Fonz jumps a literal shark. And while I do get why this phrase is used, as The Simpsons is now over 20 seasons past what the fans call their golden era, I find it fascinating that phenomenal shows of the past years like Barry and Succession are applauded by fans for ending before they got bad. You know, the shows with some of the best writers, actors, and filmmakers. What I'm not trying to do is disparage an artist for walking away when they feel like they've told their entire story. But between this growing internet sentiment that TV shows should end early and Netflix's streaming model not seeing benefits after 4 seasons of a show, I can't help but push back on this idea. Not necessarily that a show will never decline, but that maybe we shouldn't be so afraid when a series runs its course, or maybe it'll ride the hot hand and stay one of the best shows ever made. Don't believe me? Take a look at Better Call Saul. 6 additional seasons to that universe, completely warranted.
Each season of Infinity Train changed protagonists and tackled new themes while carrying the core formula of what made the show great, being episodic train adventures and self-discovery. So naturally, everyone will have their own favorite seasons since some characters and stories speak to them more personally than others. For me, my personal favorite season is the 4th one, subtitled Duet. Duet follows dual protagonists, the reckless Ryan and the meek Mingy, amateur musicians who live in Canada in the 1980s. The duo gets stuck on the Infinity Train where they have to work out their personal problems and fix a long-standing rift in their friendship. Our protagonists have such infectiously entertaining chemistry with one another, and it's very rewarding seeing them banter and heal throughout the story. It may not be the most visually exciting or darkest part of the show overall, but I found it to be the story that resonated with me the most, largely thanks to its focus on music, creativity, friendships, and the complexities of all of them. Just because there's no graphic kills like in books 2 and 3 doesn't mean it's not as deep as those books. In conclusion, Infinity Train good. I really wish we could have seen the other stories, but hey, I'm happy with what we got.
You ever picture your life like seasons of a TV show? I used to do it all the time. I want to say it's because I went to film school, but it's really more like I spend way too much time watching TV. Anyway, there are some good seasons. We've got the college years, there's Young Couch, the tournament arc. Recently I got married. But getting married made me think about how much this approach leaves out. Because TV focuses just on the highest highs and the lowest lows. But a lot of my favorite times in life are in those in-between spaces. Just having good times with the people I love the most. So on reflecting, I'd encourage everyone to think outside those big moments. Embrace the little stuff. Not every good moment needs to fit neatly into a season.
It is spring and you are young, discovering the world and who you are. You read about Spider-Man, unable to balance his life as Peter Parker with his superhero life, and you dream of being a superhero. It is summer and you are older now, but still young, embracing adulthood and the new experiences it brings. You read about Spider-Man still not able to balance his life as Peter Parker with his superhero life, just like you. Trying to balance the different aspects of yourself, the child and the adult, the lover and the friend. It is autumn now and you are settled, comfortable in who you are. You read about Spider-Man, still unbalanced, still trying to make it work. A reminder of times when you were unbalanced too, and an encouragement to try new things, to take that leap, to stay unbalanced. It is winter now, and you have a family. Your daughter reads about Spider-Man, unable to balance his life as Peter Parker with his superhero life. She dreams of being a superhero. You know how to show her.
Hey, happy birthday! No, seriously, happy birthday. This thing is set to come out in early October, right? So odds are you just recently completed another lap around the sun. Yeah. Strawberries, that's mid-July. Lemons, that's January on. But why do people seem to be in season at the same time as San Marzanos? Why do so many more humans share birthdays towards the end of September than any other time of year? Well, if you're dumb, like me, you'll simply trace it back 9 months and say, hey, that's the dead of winter. Mom and Dad must have just been pretty cold. It's like Sean DePaul says. If that were the case, though, we'd expect to see the opposite trend in the southern hemisphere, which we don't. Even in Australia, the most common birthdays all lie mid-fall. Temperature can't be the reason for the season. What is it about December that gets everyone in the mood to procreate? Well, I guess it's gotta be Santa Claus, right? This suit isn't just hot, it's putting me in heat. Honestly, it's probably just that the various winter holidays make the last week of December the most common for time off. Instead of going to work, Mom and Dad were one of the beard hairs went down my throat. Anyways, stay tuned for my next video. Top 10 reasons Santa Claus makes everyone a ho-ho-ho.
Punctuating Hirokazu Koreeda's 1998 film Afterlife are long, static shots of landscapes and empty spaces, passing through the 4 seasons as the film progresses. As many have observed, Koreeda draws these pillow shots from Yasujiro Ozu. For Deleuze, Ozu's pillow shots expand cinematic time, emphasizing duration and making cinema into a space of contemplation. But for Koreeda, they do just the opposite, compressing time. Afterlife's narrative spans 1 week, yet a year's worth of seasons come and go. Through the rapidly changing seasons, Koreeda reminds us of just how fleeting time is, how ephemeral our memories, as years flow by in what feels like just a few days.
There's this scene in Notting Hill that I always pay close attention to.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone.
William is walking through Notting Hill after losing Anna for the second time. As he walks, the seasons change around him. 6 months go by. The lateral movement gives us a sense of progression, in this case, the actual passage of time. But within the frame itself, William is static, deep in thought, just trudging along. William seems almost separated from his surroundings during this scene. There are also a few markers of time at the beginning and end. His sister Honey entering a new relationship that ends in a fight. A pregnant woman at the start is holding her baby by the end. Life goes on, even when it feels like you're stuck on something or someone. And Notting Hill shows us all of that in this 2-minute scene.
This season is going to end soon. Dear future person, are there goats where you are? How is the next season going? I can't stop the change that is coming, but this time on Earth could live on in these pages. The season before this one, the war, seems so horrible.
The soil had to forget a little.
This is not an endless cycle. Dream about another season.
The cycle will continue. I hope I played my role well.
At the time of recording this, it's 7 o'clock. The sun is setting, 2 hours earlier than it did a few months ago. A few months from now, it'll be setting 2 hours earlier still. I can't say I ever really cared about this when I was younger, but ever since moving out and becoming at least nominally in charge of my own time, winter scares me. The anxiety of feeling like my day is ending all too soon, not having that easy tell that it's time to stop working. My sleep gets thrown off, which means I see even less of the already vanishing daylight. All of this compounds upon itself, and I end up in a state of constantly chasing time, constantly catching up on day, staying up later, waking up earlier, all for a glimpse of a sun that feels like it's getting colder every day. Winter demands of us self-discipline, demands we use our days while they're still there, because sooner rather than later, the sun will set, and all that will be left is darkness.
Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. These are the opening lines of William Shakespeare's Richard III, and the phrase winter of our discontent has been part of our lexicon for over 400 years. I grew up in a frozen place with harsh winters lasting half the year. Frostbite mornings, days with hardly any sunlight, snowbanks taller than grown men. This world is a warmer place than the one of my youth, yet I cannot escape the existential dread that comes with winter. It begins in an all too short autumn, a harbinger of dark days to come. September hath ended, and with it the carefree days of summer. Winter's herald autumn arrived, bearing the dread of its master. I have only the promise of spring.
When does a season end? Because a season does end, right? That's what defines it. The snow always melts, the leaves always turn brown. A season is a season because it's finite and regular. When Valve officially launched their hotly anticipated sequel Counter-Strike 2 in the September of 2023, one of the things they'd reworked from the previous title was the Premier ranked matchmaking system. Finally, rankings would periodically reset. There would be seasons, starting with Season 1 in autumn. Extra incentive to play Premier, great. But winter came and went with no resets. A year on, it's still Season 1. That hasn't changed. Not much has changed about CS2. Many of the bugs from the beta remain. It's still remarkably light on content. But one thing that did change the other day, amidst a medium-sized update, 90% ludicrously priced cosmetics, 10% minor gameplay tweaks, was the introduction of a paid, season-long battle pass. Finally, this feature's become relevant, but only as it's been monetized. When does a season end? These days, only when it's profitable to end it.
If we're talking about seasons, the first thing that comes to mind for me is Olympus Company's seasons, and more specifically, Season 3, Bon Voyage. And if we're talking Bon Voyage, we're talking Blind Obsession. So let's do that. There are two versions of the Blind Obsession ego, Ishmael's and Ryoshu's. The abnormality associated with this ego is the dream-devouring stilt current, a whale-like abnormality with fluorescent lights jammed into its body and a very large mouth. Two mouths, actually. It has no eyes, yet devours everything in its path. A literal blind obsession. Blind Obsession Ishmael is the face of Season 3 due to it fitting Ishmael's ocean on obsession theme to a T. It perfectly references Moby Dick, Ishmael's book of origin, which is then reflected in Ishmael's story. As for Ryoshu, it fits her due to her book of origin depicting the painter Yoshihide, completely obsessed with painting the Hell Screen.
Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries is a Yu-Gi-Oh card that requires you to reveal a monster in your extra deck, and if your opponent is playing the same monster, they must get rid of all their copies of it. Because of its overly specific effect, Ghost Reaper's play rate can be used as a barometer to see if an entire metagame is centralized around a couple of busted extra deck cards. Formats with a high play rate of Ghost Reaper represent Yu-Gi-Oh's Winters, some of the least diverse metagames in modern memory. Zodiac format, Spiral format, and even Tier Limits format saw a jump in the card's usage, with each strategy netting over 68% of top cut slots at large tournaments of the time. Cards like Ghost Reaper define modern Yu-Gi-Oh's design philosophy at its most toxic. Unreasonably strong strategies, folding to individual staple cards that remove all possibility of interaction.
Frostpunk is a game of overcoming the end of the world, building a city in a frozen apocalypse despite bitter sacrifices. Its themes are in no place more condensed and beautiful than the soundtrack by Piotr Musiel, and his music brilliantly encompasses battling against the forces of nature. The theme for the Last Autumn DLC is a prequel of bracing for dark times ahead. As its string section representing humanity work together and harmonize, looming is a single note from an unyielding brass that heralds the coming of winter. The mission is to build the world's last hope for when the snow falls, but as the plucking of strings alludes, your team is running out of time. The theme, which only measures before held firm in a united string section, wavers to the oncoming brass. The anxiety builds with the forte of the piece, and despite the defiance of the strings of autumn, the horns of winter have the final word.
The Fall Fair Suite is one of the several opening numbers that non-Broadway musical Ride the Cyclone has seen across its many versions, and it is the inciting incident of the show as we see 6 high schoolers die in a roller coaster accident at their town's Fall Fair, which they went to on a field trip for their school's choir. Now, Ride the Cyclone is no stranger to sadness, whether it be big and showy or quiet and subtle. However, when we talk about the sadness present within this musical, this song is hardly ever mentioned. This is perfectly understandable. The Fall Fair Suite on its own is not really a sad song, and it certainly doesn't hold a candle up to, say, The Ballad of Jane Doe or even Noel's Lament. However, when you think about what they're doing in this song, it becomes a lot more somber. 6 choir kids put on their last performance, dying in the first semester of the school year, never to perform to a crowd ever again. And the song they sing? Basic and forgivable.
It's October, which means we're all likely running into everyone's favorite seasonal cryptid, Sheb Woolley's one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. And I have a question. What color is he? We know that he is one-eyed and one-horned, but purple could modify either people or eater. When Sheb asks him about his profession, he clearly states that his occupation is eating purple people, so Sheb was safe regardless of his toughness level. His prey is purple, not him. So, can he fly? Or do the purple people fly? We see him come out of the sky, which suggests that he approaches Sheb from above, but we see him in trees throughout the song, and when he descends to meet Sheb on the ground, he swings, which isn't something a flying animal would do, right? So it seems likely that our boy is a tree-based ambush predator who sits in wait for purple people to fly by. And given that many ambush predators rely on camouflage to avoid detection, I think we have our answer. The one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater is probably green.
When winter arrives in Stars Hollow, town resident Lorelei Gilmore is always the first to know.
Close your eyes and breathe. I smell snow. It's that time of year.
In the darkest, longest nights of the year, the Firelight Festival honors the town's founders. Then spring brings the arrival of bright flowers, out-of-town tourists, and the Easter egg hunt. Blossom lines the trees outside the inn where Lorelei works. In summer, Rory, her daughter, is finally out of school. And then autumn comes, where the town's leaves turn red and litter the streets, and there are hayrides and pumpkins. In most TV shows, time passes without markers except for obvious holidays, but the seasons and the slow transitions between them are a way of grounding the Gilmores in their world, making Stars Hollow feel like home.
I think some traditions are nice. Birthdays, holidays, taking a walk in the first snow of the season.
This scene was shot in daylight. This shot was made at midnight. And here, a Russian winter was staged in Spanish summer. Editing can hide that a year went by. We can disavow decades with CGI, or strip Mississippi green down to burnt umber. In this age of permanent electric day, all data just a light second away, everything we own traveling farther than Magellan, the seasons will not survive the carbon. Our chronoception may never reharden, and will there even be a home for us to dwell in? On screen, it's a dream. Off screen, it's a waste. Our tech disintegrates time and space. Our very sense of life boils in its crucible. And when this era completes its final theft and ecological disasters are all that's left, will it be wrong to find them beautiful?